the sharing experience you have with other people? What kind of what works for you? What do you think is important for people when they are telling their own story? What works for you about it? What's so enjoyable?
I think it's very important because historically we were othered, and we had people set up organizations through pity and this kind of model of trying to fix or erase or hide disabled people away. So I think it's very empowering for disabled people to share their stories. And as disabled people, especially those of us who are intersectional and belong to various other communities, whether it's LGBT or Black, Asian, ethnic minorities, we have other dynamics to share. And I think it's so powerful. And I think the whole idea of the project that we're doing with the People's Museum is about nothing about us without us. And I think historically we've had people speak on our behalf and belittle our opinions and ideas. And I think this self-agency and this ability to share our experiences, that we can shape our own futures and we know what's best for us. In a lot of things I do, I'm the only BAME person in a lot of projects. And when I try to politely explain or question why management is predominantly white, people take offence to the term white privilege. That's why trying to write a fact sheet in Easy Read to explain some of the roots of colonialism and why we need to be giving BAME people equal spaces. I myself doodle, and a lot of my artwork I'm hoping to do with Dada Fest in Liverpool, which are very supportive. A lot of my artwork is doodles, and it's about intersectionality, and it's about, I look at themes like tokenism and being selected for things as the only brown person, but then I look at things like fandom and sensationalism, where the media sensationalize somebody because they might be blind and South Asian and pursuing a career in fashion or whatever. So I think it's finding a balance.
I think Anis really nailed it just before, to be honest, because other people have always been telling our stories for us, and they tell it wrong. They don't understand our story, so they can't tell it accurately. And they all have their own vested interests in our story. Where when we tell our own story, then we give an accurate version of what's going on from our own perspective. And it's always been important because that goes back as long as since we exist in historical terms as a distinct group of people with impairments who are discriminated against by society. So yeah, it's always been important, and it's also important we tell those stories so that we are not forgotten. So a lot of the music I do, which is about people's movement activism, and that a lot of the songs are from different protests, campaigns that have happened. And the idea is to keep those stories alive by putting them into a piece of art so that we can remember them. I think when we bring that music back out and we play it to people that have been there at the protests, it also helps us raise our power and pride. So also, because most of the work I do isn't really aimed at non-disabled people, actually. It's aimed at our own people, because we need to raise our own power and pride and our own awareness and work on ourselves first and foremost. So yeah, it's we need our own voices in there, not just everybody talking about our story.
Yeah. Gemma, again, just maybe a slightly more nuanced version of that question is kind of your role as an organization is to kind of, advocate those stories and kind of, try to navigate the relationship between those stories and what's built in the world around them, and try to kind of make sure that relationship is balanced in terms of power dynamics and, access and inclusion and all that. So kind of what is the current state of that story, in the sense that, what we are hearing from our community and how that is being transmitted, understood from a position of kind of, you kind of bridging both of those things and kind of having a unique perspective on it.
Having a look at current climates with regards to sort of everything going on with COVID-19, we were told by the government that everyone's in this together, we're all going to struggle, we're all going to have the same problems, we're all going to do this, we're all going to do that. But actually, when you look at it, people who are living in care homes, disabled people who are living in care homes, have fared a lot worse in this scenario than those people who are living independently. Also, there's a lack of accessible information around COVID-19. There's also digital exclusion that people haven't thought about. So where are we getting all these updates? We're getting them online. I think there's like 60 to 70% of disabled people can't actually get online, whether that's due to a lack of funding or a lack of training or something that's going wrong. They can't actually access that information, that very vital information that everyone else has got.
It's a very interesting idea, us as a community, because it sometimes feels like it doesn't have an identity in the same way that, say, you would look at the LGBT community, because I have, like, I'm very intersectional in the same way that Anis was talking about, in the way that I've got sort of bits of my identity in different sections. And the LGBT community, it can sort of be like, well, you can be like you can have sort of a commercial identity, you can have an activist identity, you can be in the arts scene, do you know what I mean? Like, it's got all of these parts. Whereas as a disabled person, it doesn't always feel that way. Do you know what I mean? You're always just sort of sometimes arguing for your rights as a disabled person, but you can't just go and enjoy going and seeing a disabled artist or a disabled play, or like, it's not got that same sort of energy that it would be going and seeing LGBT plays at Edinburgh Festival. Like, it wasn't really a category when I was looking through the Fringe magazine to go for my 30th birthday in the same way.
I mean, ringing people like during this time, and the same said that the same is like the Venture Arts. Like, Venture Arts are doing like a lot of amazing work, and they do that lots of Zoom calls to check in with the participants and to see how they're doing, and like they ring people to see how they're doing, because some people that attend Venture Arts have been there for ages, so we want to make sure that they're okay during these uncertain times.
I think probably we need to start using sort of maybe a combination of the older techniques we used to use as well as the new stuff. So what I'm hoping, so in the post-COVID world, for most non-disabled people, unfortunately, I think everything's about to go back to in-person. And all the things they could suddenly do that they wouldn't do for disabled workers will now be impossible again, because as soon as non-disabled people don't need it, it's going to go. But I would hope in disabled people's own organisations that we will now continue ahead to use some of the technology that we weren't all using before. So I think GMCDP is a good example. We've been a little bit hesitant over the years around home working, around use of technology, and some other organisations that are further ahead. So I'm also involved in a national group, Disability Arts Online, and we have a remote office. So that group operates quite differently, and it would be quite normal for us to involve someone who can't attend through Skype or another medium. Whereas I think in a lot of groups that hasn't been standard. And what I'm really hoping going forward is that what we've kind of been forced to get used to and learn through this COVID pandemic, we bring forward with us to those meetings to include people who can't attend, because there's some real benefit to that. But at the same time, whilst people like me have been to more meetings in the last 4 months than I've been to normally in a year, because I can't physically manage it. So I've been at every meeting there is. People are sick of the sight of me now. But for some of my colleagues, this is a completely inaccessible format. So they were able to turn up before more often, but now they can't come. So what I'm really hoping is going forward, Andy, that we'll use those two different strengths that we have and work together more to have people joining by remote as well as in person for those people that need it and that are always going to find that more accessible, and that'll help us write that next bit of our history,